Okay, today we're talking about the AI revolution. I have an expert who is standing up right now creating a AI hub affiliated with Princeton University. He has a lot of experience in this area, so we're going to talk about what he is seeing. And his name is Jeffrey Oakman. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and every week we have all kinds of experts. We've had CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, and authors and speakers. And increasingly, as the most important thing affecting business today is AI, we've had lots of different AI experts. And so today I'm bringing to the show an old friend. First of all, before we get to that, of course, this episode brought to you by our company, Rise 25, where we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping companies to run their podcasts. We are the easy button for any company to launch and run a podcast. And if you want to learn more about that, go to our website, rise25.com. And so let me tell you about my friend here. So Jeffrey and I worked together 25 years ago in the White House. Brilliant guy, public policy strategist, innovation leader. And after leaving the White House, he went back, got an additional degree, and eventually ended up at Princeton University, and then as a policy advisor to the governor of New Jersey, and now has been involved in setting up this AI hub affiliated with Princeton and a couple of our other organizations for the state of New Jersey. And so he and I were talking about AI, and I thought it'd be a great chance to catch up with him and bring him on the show. So Jeffrey, it's such an honor to have you here today, and it's so great to catch up with you. Let's start with how did you get into the world of AI? So at some point you're a policy advisor to the governor of New Jersey, and were you kind of keeping your eye on this and thinking that this is something that the state needs to, get more involved in?
Yeah, thanks, John. It's great to be here with you and with the audience. You're happy to share what we're doing over in New Jersey. I didn't come to AI specifically, I sort of came to it the way a lot of people have, which is realizing that these tools are becoming not just much easier to use, but much more pervasive in terms of what they can do and powerful. My background is really in economic development and workforce development policy, and that's what I was advising Governor Murphy on for 5 years during his term, which just concluded a couple of months ago or last month when we inaugurated Mikey Sherrill as our new governor here in New Jersey. But I was advising him on these issues, part of which was also the innovation portfolio, which in New Jersey was, we have an office of innovation at the state, which is really focused on promoting digital government, thinking about how you can use digital tools to improve government transparency, effectiveness, et cetera. And so the governor was really thinking about AI, came to AI both in terms of how does that make government better, but also how is it an economic development opportunity for the state of New Jersey? And so we are to sort of give the short version of how the AI hub came about and sort of my involvement. New Jersey has a program called Strategic Innovation Centers where the state can provide funding to innovation hubs kind of that focus on areas of strength in our economy, whether it's med tech or fintech or some of these
Yeah.
areas. And we decided that we should do one in AI, which is really sort of more of a horizontal technology, but an opportunity to kind of feed into all these other industry verticals. Kind of how do you apply AI in the space? And so we decided to build out a strategic innovation center in partnership with Princeton University, brought on Microsoft and CoreWeave as corporate partners, and so I moved from the governor's office. Personally, I moved my job from the governor's office over to Princeton University and then the hub itself once it got stood up to sort of be the person in charge of getting this thing off the ground.
And what does the hub do to spur that kind of innovation? How do you, get involved in, companies leveraging AI or creating new solutions, new innovations that haven't existed before that lead to, more jobs for the state?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, our mission is one that I think is it's it seems natural, but it's also interestingly, I don't think that there's any other state-based entities that have exactly the same focus. But it's really mobilizing the partnerships and the innovation infrastructure sort of and the talent to kind of focus on how do you translate AI into economic and social value sort of across the spectrum. So we're really focusing on a few different areas of in the economy. One is the the research and development angle. How do we spur innovation? Connecting with the research institutions in higher education around the state and connecting that into industry. The second piece is really becoming an accelerator for startups. So how do we boost the startup economy and AI in New Jersey? Third is how do we build a talent base? So focusing on workforce development from K through 12 up through higher ed, and then upskilling of existing workers is obviously a huge piece of this. Fourth is thinking about responsible and beneficial use of AI, and how do we make sure that sort of everything we're doing is foundationally done in a way with the societal outcomes in mind. And then finally, I mean, the hub itself is a physical hub. We have about 6,500 square feet of space in central New Jersey, right in Princeton, where we're going to have co-working space for AI startups, et cetera. So like hosting a bunch of events,
Mm,
making sure that you're like, I mean, a lot of it is that creating the
kind of the circumstance or the environment where people can come together and, come up with innovations or ideas.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And everybody always looks at Silicon Valley, right? Is like the model for this, and part of what Silicon Valley is just a place where everybody who's in tech in different spaces can
Right.
interact with each other, right?
Right.
And there's
And
there's
and
like
and actually to that point, tonight we're recording this in February of 2026, and right now everyone's talking about this Claude bot open claw thing that has been kind of all the rage and it's been going crazy, people talking about it. And there's an event tonight with the creator of that in San Francisco, which I'm going to go to. I
oh,
was on the
cool.
wait list and I got off the wait list, and it's at this AI co-working space. I'm just going honestly to be a fly on the wall because I feel like we're at this inflection point where these crazy things happen. And, you and I were working at the White House at the time that the whole .com internet, the first bubble was going on. And I felt like I missed out on some of those iconic, like, meetings. You look back and sometimes, like, these billionaires and these innovators were all in the room at some event. And I'm hoping that this is one of those types of events. But do you plan on doing those sorts of things where you bring people together and say, hey, let's focus on this one thing together and invite a bunch of people?
Yeah, for sure. We've started having a lot of events there, and we're going to do a lot more. And I think part of it is yeah, how do you get people with interesting ideas in front of other people who can take those ideas and run with them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think like being connected to, I mean, not just Princeton, but like Rutgers and New Jersey Institute of Technology and all these higher eds institutions across the state. Like, there's so many great ideas that like, part of what we're there to do is help those ideas find a way into the entrepreneurial pathway and to sort of commercialize them into ways that people can use it. And I think, to your point, like, these types of events just bring in people who are interested. And if you're interested, you might have some other idea from a totally different discipline that you can pair with it, and something totally new happens. I mean, that's
Right.
the magic we have to try to create, right?
How do you counter the fears that people have that this is going to lead to a lot of job loss? I imagine you deal with that sort of thing because there are a lot of people who say, "Oh man, this is going to be really disruptive. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs." How do you deal with that as a hub or as a policy?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly there's a lot of concern out there, and I think that part of that concern, I think, comes from sort of lack of understanding of what AI does, because I think a lot of people could do the jobs they do could be done better and more efficiently if AI was effectively used, but they don't have anyone to train them on how to do that, and so their thought is, I don't know how to do it, so I'm going to get laid off so somebody else can do this. But I think that there's part of what we're focusing on is how do we promote strong training programs so that not only can people understand how to use AI, but you promote AI adoption in a way that leverages people's existing expertise to be more productive. Like, it's not necessarily productive for a company to lay off a ton of people and change something, change processes so that they're AI driven. If they don't, like, you have to have people who understand how to do that. So I
Yeah.
mean, you may have different types of jobs, but a lot of those jobs can be done by people who are already working in these companies and already understand how to do it. They just need the tech training.
Right.
And so upskilling is the key, I think, and certainly, um, focusing on how do you bridge that space between, like, the sort of entry level jobs that are at risk. How do you give people the tools to sort of advance beyond that to where they can be adding value,
Yeah.
in their jobs.
It's amazing how, you think of this, AI is kind of viewed as this like innovative technology. It's going to change everything. But it really does kind of boil down to the most brick and mortar type of thing, which is just educating people, just training people, on these tools. And I'm a tinkerer, so I'm constantly going all day long. I'm in different AIs and I'm trying different things, but not everyone's like that. And even if they are, it's a slow way of learning. And so, creating, training programs that will educate the masses can really make a big difference in whether these tools ultimately are helpful or not.
Well, I agree. And also, like, part of what we're thinking about is, like, there's a lot of companies that are really on the cutting edge of what you can do with AI, and they're transforming themselves with this technology. And you sort of see that in the higher tech industries. But in a lot of areas, like, small business or sort of nonprofit organizations and places that don't have the capacity to do those types of things, they're not using it at all. And so part of what we're thinking about is, like, how do you figure out what some of those relatively simple, low-hanging fruit use cases are that can be applied across a lot of different organizations that are facing similar challenges, and make sure that you're democratizing access to that kind of training and product, so that you're not seeing, like, some people jump ahead of others because they can use AI, when really these are tools that everybody should be able to use to make their business run better.
Right, right. And then of course you mentioned training. Like how do you create training when everything changes so quickly? It's just absolutely bonkers how, you could create a training last week and it's different this week.
Yeah, just earlier on a call today, somebody was pointing out that, like, a year or two ago, like, prompt engineering was really what we were training people to do. And now it's like that's A, so second nature to people, and B, so sort of done for you that it's not really a skill anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I mean, skills are certainly changing, and that's the other reason why the upskilling piece is so critical. Is that it's without sort of a lifelong learning pathway here, we're never going to be able to get where we need to go. I mean,
Right.
everybody's job is changing whether they like it or not, and so the upskilling is helping you evolve with the job.
Right. How has the affiliation with Princeton played out? Like, are you involved in the classroom, or are there students from Princeton that are involved in the AI Hub?
I mean, so Princeton is one of our equity founders. So they contributed the space and some of the early funding, seed funding for this. I mean, and we are so we're affiliated with them. We're not part of the university, but we're definitely doing a lot of things. Like our R&D program interfaces with faculty in a lot of different ways. Some of these events we've talked about are bringing in students, and there's a lot of that type of overlap. We're looking at actually ways that students could be, could take on some fractional work with some of the startups that are in our space, for their own learning purposes. Thinking about, and the other thing we've been doing a lot with, which is not just with Princeton, but sort of across the higher ed landscape, is that the experiential learning piece of this is so important, both for the learner and also for the company that is learning as they go, sort of what they want people to be able to do. So we launched with the Community College Consortium in New Jersey. We launched an registered apprenticeship program in AI and machine learning recently, with the idea that, like, getting the students out there into the jobs where they can earn while they learn is sort of the way to adapt with AI. And so that's something Princeton has very much supported as well, through their relationships with
Yeah.
community colleges and others.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that it's going to affect the education system is a little crazy. So I'm actually going this afternoon to an AI task force advisory meeting made up of like parents and members of the community for my kids' school district to
Hmm.
talk about how the school district is going to adapt with AI. And I'm very much in favor of it. I mean, I've seen with my kids, you've got kids that are interested in different things. And, I have one kid who's loves sports and struggles at science. And so recently I, was helping to prepare for a science test, and I'd created a project in ChatGPT, which we were speaking to. We were explaining what we needed to be quizzed on, and it was quizzing him on these, subject matters in a way that used like baseball and sports metaphors. So it made it really
Hmm.
kind of real for him. And, and it was also at his level, and it was adapting to the level. And it was just like an incredible tool that will, in many ways, I think, level the playing field, especially for people that come from, socioeconomic backgrounds and don't have access to, expensive tutors, that they will have a tutor in their pocket that if they're motivated, they can use to help them to learn faster. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential there. I mean, I think the example you just gave is a great one, which is, AI allowing us to basically, like, create educational tools directed at the individual. Sort of how are people learning, and how can we meet everybody where they are? I mean, I think AI does offer that opportunity. The challenge is, as you know, is that, like, there's a lot of, I mean, there's also a lot of ways that you can use AI to get around traditional assignments. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of, like, is it cheating? How do we make sure that people are not using it to cheat? And I
Yeah.
think that part of what has to happen over time is educators have to learn how to adapt the way they teach and the types of projects they give, so that they're still testing the individual on what they need to know, but they're not sort of making you do the stuff that AI can do for you. Like, you need to do the critical thinking. You need to
Yeah.
you need to you need to focus on the problem solving question, and, like, that's what we need to be teaching. Um, it's just like the internet. I mean, like, there's a lot less memorization in school now than there used to be, because we're never really going to live in a world again where you can't
Right.
Google stuff and figure out what
Right.
day something happened.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought of a metaphor. It's like, the internet comes along and it was less important for our schools to teach our kids how to, address an envelope, to send a letter in the mail because of email. Still, like, they would do it from time to time, still important, but I'm like, do we really need to spend a lot of time on that? Because like all of a sudden you have a new world where you can communicate in different ways, and that's kind of what's happening with AI. But as far as the testing piece goes, yeah, I don't know what the answer is to that. I've heard that more and more schools are like bringing out blue books and they're testing people in blue books and writing essays in class. honestly, at this point, if I was a teacher, I'd probably be doing the same thing because I don't know how else you can, verify that the student knows the information. Or there's also software, if you take a test on a laptop, you can lock out all other things, like a software that'll block all other, abilities um, to communicate. And so that may be a possibility as well. I'll give you another example. I had another, son who was taking a test. He had a test, and this teacher, I think it was history. This teacher, for some reason, said you can write everything you want on like a 3x5 card. Sometimes teachers do stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So he'd written tiny little chicken scratch, like all the things that he wanted to remember on there. And I was like, "How are you doing for this test? Are you ready for it?" And he's like, "Well, I got all this stuff on this, card." And I was like, "But are you really ready for it?" And he was like, "Well, I could tell he wasn't." So I was like, "Okay." I took a picture of that card, uploaded to ChatGPT, and said, create quiz questions on all the information on here. And of course, it processed for a little bit, and then it started, quizzing him with different questions related to that material. And it was just amazing how quickly, you can turn that into something interesting.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, it reminds me of a story from college where, similarly, somebody you were able to bring like one, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and put
Yeah.
on it whatever was going to help you for the test. And so somebody brought one in, put the piece of paper on the floor, and had his friend stand on top of it, and then he would ask him questions from the test. But that's sort of what AI is
But
like,
on top
right?
of it, that's great.
But that's what AI is like. We have this
Yeah.
interactive sort of Q&A opportunity. And so how do you turn that off, or at least find ways to test people's knowledge or ability to sort of write something where they're not able to basically just have it do it for you?
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, Jeffrey went to Rice University, so that's where the smart ones come up with those kinds of ideas, like putting your friend on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. But
I don't remember if that was actually something that happened at Rice or if someone told me that, but
it's a great
it was
story.
it was funny. Yeah.
It's a great story. Yeah. So, we mentioned earlier, like Claude Bot. This is this new technology that's been the rage for about a week or so. But how do you keep abreast of all the things that are happening, for you personally? How do you keep, in touch of all the things that are changing so, day by day?
I mean, I can't claim that I'm very successful at that, honestly. I mean, it is really difficult. I think, we've tried to. I mean, I mentioned some of the priority areas for the AI hub, and a
Yeah.
lot of my work is really on the policy and operations side. So like I try to sort of focus on the things that I'm doing and try to stay abreast of that. But I mean, the other thing that's hard to track, and I think if you're out in Silicon Valley, you see this maybe more readily in the news, but like all of the financial changes in the industry, like this company is suddenly investing billions of dollars in this other one, and sort of like what do those financial relationships mean for some of the tools and some of the products? I mean, that type of thing is hard to keep up with because, you know, you don't know what's in the works until it becomes public, and then it's like, oh, there's this big change. I mean,
Yeah.
we're spending a lot of time talking to pretty much everyone we can to sort of build partnerships, and some people are really much more invested in, for example, in New Jersey specifically than others. So we've invested our time there, but there's a ton going on. I mean, CoreWeave's an example. They're a large AI company that's based in New Jersey that, sort of every month something significant happen, a big transaction occurs that sort of changes their trajectory, or sort of what they're focused on. And it's really a remarkable company.
Hmm.
And so, but the things they're working on are like there's just a lot going on in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah. And for other companies that you're like reaching out to proactively or talking to, what is that like? Do they have a point of contact inside of the company that is innovating with AI, or other companies like, well, we've been watching it, but we haven't really thought about it? Like, what are those different conversations like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can learn something about where a company is in the AI transformation sort of by who they kind of connect you with. Like sometimes it's like they're doing more in the sort of hiring and skills and HR space. Like other times it's the sort of the innovation space where they're doing the most with AI, or maybe it's more the sort of operational CIO who's kind of driving it. Um I think really you know, many of the really innovative companies, it's being driven by, sort of what are the research needs and what's the sort of product needs and how can we evolve that in AI, and then the rest of the sort of business operations kind of flows out of that. But I think the most important thing is you certainly need sort of top level executive buy-in for the type of AI transformation that many companies are going through now.
And then for the smaller companies, you obviously can't call all of them, but do you do like, online trainings, webinars? Do you do in-person, trainings? Like, how do you target them?
Yeah, I mean, we're working on a number of programs that will do that. Like one of the things that we have on the street right now is a survey of employers, sort of all sizes across New Jersey, to get an idea of sort of what's their AI adoption look like, what's the trajectory of that over the next couple of years, what does that mean for their skills needs, et cetera. And I think the goal of that data collection is really to develop our programming to focus on, where are the gaps, like where are the real needs, and to make sure that, to your point, like that the types of training programs that we support or create are training people for the skills that are in demand, and that's evolving all the time. So
Hmm.
part of what I think the plan is to really like get a baseline, get a foundation of data, and then continue to do focus groups, over time to evolve that information.
We're almost out of time, Jeffrey. So this has been great, but what else are you excited about in the evolving world of AI right now? What gets your attention? What are you excited about?
I think one thing that's exciting to me that we're doing some with is kind of the opportunity for AI to accelerate, scientific research and development. And we are Microsoft is one of our partners, and they have a product called Microsoft Discovery as an example. But many of the AI companies have these sort of science accelerator platforms that are, agentic AI. They use essentially compute to allow you to like ask some incredibly broad questions, and AI pretty quickly can narrow it down to like, out of 5 million potential, you know, products that could do this thing, like only 15 really make sense for you. And then you can figure out like, all right, let's take those 15 and take them to a lab and figure out if they really work. And all of a sudden, like a question that would have just been hypothetical 10 years ago, or might have taken 10 years to evaluate, can be done in less than a year. And most of that time is in the lab because the sort of compute aspect of it is done very quickly. And I think the potential of that, not just to answer some really, really challenging scientific questions, but I mean, the potential of that is also to allow for more startup companies with good ideas to actually be able to get an answer fast enough to be potentially profitable. I mean, a lot of companies have an idea, but you just can't make a company out of it. And I think some of these tools are changing that dynamic, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I remember this was maybe a couple of months ago. There was an announcement that AI discovered some kind of like, I think it was a synthetic anti-venom that could help with like snake bites of some sort that hadn't been discovered before, and AI was involved in it. And I thought that's really cool that these sorts of innovations are starting to happen, and it'll be, exciting to see more of that stuff as we move forward.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, it's happening daily. I mean,
Well,
there's, and it's just it's just, yeah, it's amazing to kind of read like the things that people are discovering.
Yeah, yeah. Jeffrey, this has been so much fun. Where can people go to learn more about you or connect with you or learn more about the New Jersey AI Hub?
With the New Jersey AI Hub is on LinkedIn, so you can find us there. And then our website is just njaihub.org. So happy to have anybody check us out. And again, my name is Jeffrey Oakman, so feel free to find me on LinkedIn as well, or look us up that way. But lots of exciting things happening all over the country, including New Jersey.
Yeah. All right, Jeffrey. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Good to see you.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.